Our next witness is via WebEx, Representative Francis Ryan. Representative Ryan has served in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives since 2016. Mr. Ryan is a certified public accountant, and prior to his election ran a practice that focused on corporate restructuring and management. Mr. Ryan is a retired Marine Reserve Colonel who served in the Central Command Special Operations Officer in Operation Enduring Freedom. Representative Ryan.
Thank you so much for the chance to be with you today. The mail-in ballot system for the general election in 2020 in Pennsylvania was so fraught with inconsistencies and irregularities that the reliability of the mail-in votes in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is almost impossible to rely upon. The evidence of these violations of the Pennsylvania election laws as enacted, the election security safeguards, and the process flaws include things such as actions by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which undermined the controls inherent in Act 77 of 2019. The controls which were undermined included on September 17th, 2020, the Supreme Court unilaterally extended the deadline for mail-in ballots to be received to 3 days after the election. They mandated that the ballots mailed without a postmark would be presumed to be received and allowed the use of drop boxes for collection votes. And then on October 23rd, 2020, upon a petition from the Secretary of the Commonwealth, ruled that mail-in ballots need not authenticate signature for the mail-in ballots, thereby treating in-person and mail-in voters dissimilarly and eliminating a critical safeguard against a potential election fraud. And this is one of my main reasons for believing that it's difficult to believe that the mail-in voting process can be relied upon. Then there were also actions and candidly inactions by the Secretary of State, which undermined the consistency and controls of the election process. On November 2nd, the night before the November 3rd election and prior to the prescribed time for pre-canvassing mail-in ballots, the Office of the Secretary of the Commonwealth encouraged certain counties to notify party and candidate representatives of mail-in voters whose ballots contained defects. In certain counties, watchers were not allowed to meaningfully observe the pre-canvassing and canvassing activities relating to the absentee and the mail-in ballot process. Those are at what I would call the strategic level. At the operational level, there were a significant number of issues that resulted from those issues. The Pennsylvania election system is the Shore system, and some of the issues that took place actually called into question the consistency. For example, in the case of an overvote in case of Philadelphia County, on November 4th, 11:30, the Department of State posted updated mail-in vote counts for Philadelphia County, showing 508,112 ballots, despite the fact that only 432,873 ballots were in fact issued to voters. This data was later corrected, but the question becomes who had the authorization to change and correct that information and who had access to the system. Any type of system control would ask for that. Additionally, on a data file on November 4th, 2020, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Open Data Record site reported 3.1 million ballots sent out. In a prior discussion that was had the day before the election, it was indicated that there were 2.7 million that were sent out. And efforts to attempt to reconcile those numbers have not yet been successful and still need to be resolved upon. Recently, a newly available data voter set from data.pada.gov, which had been offline for weeks, indicated the last update had been done on November 16, 2020. The download of November 16, 2020 shows 75,505 more ballots returned on 11/16 than the comparable download on November 15th. So that basically means an additional 75,505 ballots were added to the data set, again, without any explanation or without the ability to have a hearing to determine that. It becomes almost impossible to track in the system of internal controls. Additionally, there were mail date irregularities that were identified in the 3.1 million ballots relative to the dates that the ballots were finalized. Ballots mailed late and ballots mailed inconsistent with enacted legislation. That was 154,584 votes or ballots. Vote date of birth irregularities, meaning voters over 100 years of age, 1,573 ballots. These apparent discrepancies can only be evaluated by reviewing the transaction logs and to determine the access, the authority for the entry, the verification of the data entered, as well as the authentication. Anytime you have this type of system of internal controls, as a CPA, you would want to ensure that the system of internal controls is reasonably designed to deter wrongdoing. Before and after the election of November 3rd, 2020, the efforts by the State Government Committee and other members of the Pennsylvania legislature to obtain oversight information and relevant data to confirm or deny claims of improprieties were stymied throughout. Even an effort to have a hearing on November 20, 2020 with Dominion Systems was canceled after Dominion Systems indicated they were concerned about litigation concerns. Candidly, without knowing the answer to these questions, and due to the magnitude of the potential discrepancies and closeness to the elections, the results of the 2020 presidential election in Pennsylvania would just be completely difficult, if not impossible, to determine with conclusiveness. And Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Representative Ryan. Our next witness.